All right, welcome to Comfortably Uncomfortable. You've got Sandy and Alex here, and we are here to empower women to choose courage over comfort by getting comfortably uncomfortable. We get real and cut through the bullshit. Are you ready to get a little weird? Because we're going to laugh, sweat, cry, and grow together.
No topic is going to be TMI. Well, maybe for me, but not for Sandy. We complement each other in that way. Okay, so are we ready?
Well, yeah, duh, I am, but are you?
Okay, let's go. The one with Dr. Madeline William. Friends, I'm so excited today to introduce you to Dr. Madeline William from Adapt Psychological Services. She is a therapist who treats both adults and children, particularly passionate about serving the autism community. She helps clients create adaptive strategies to deepen their sense of meaning and purpose in daily life. Today, she's also sharing a very special perspective, a personal postpartum journey as a physically active woman and a mother of two, how she's seen her transformation and those of friends and family who feel shame asking for help in this new season of life. Can you imagine now why we wanted her to come on today? I am lucky enough to call this woman a friend and a client. Dr. William, Sandy, and I can't wait to get chatting today. I'm going to stop rambling now. Are you ready to get comfortably uncomfortable with us?
Oh, I'm so ready.
I have so many questions. I can't wait to make you uncomfortable. Yes.
I'm going to stumble through. Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for being here. And honestly, I'm going to call you Maddie because that was a mouthful, Dr. Madeline William. So for short, Maddie. We like to start all our podcasts and just reflecting. And, you know, our first episode was the one with the why. And so whenever we have somebody on, we want to ask them their why. So one, to make you uncomfortable and have to make you think about it, but two, to also just create intention. And so it could be your why you decided to say yes to come and talk with our crazy selves and our, you know, awkwardness. Or it could be your driver of why you are a psychologist, why you are a mother. So whatever comes to you, when I say like, what is your why for today? What would you say?
Yeah. I have a couple different whys. I think on a personal level, Alex is, she's a lifelong buddy of mine. And I'm just so excited for you both. But just knowing Alex's journey and being so excited and honored to be a guest, that's a huge why for me, is just our friendship and really wanting to, you've been so supportive of me in my recent journey and, wanted to be supportive of you, of course.
Maddie, it might be my first tear on the podcast.
It's true, man. This is what we're about. We're about lifting each other up and women supporting women. So, love it.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously I am a mother of two, and I was talking to a friend recently and was just explaining how this is such a raw time in my life in terms of figuring so many different things out at once for the very first time. And you can't help but, if you're in it, if you're trying to stay present and mindful, as I know y'all are all about, you can't help but feel that emotional rawness. But I was saying, I have meaning like coming out of my pores, I feel like, on every given day. And I feel so grateful to be, even though you're always feeling like you're making a sacrifice in one area when you have like a practice you've started and, two kids in a, recently 2-bedroom condo became a 1-bedroom condo with a leak that happened. Alex, I haven't explained all that to you, but yeah, basically just picture 4 people sleeping in 1 bedroom, 2 of them being under 3. It's been an interesting couple of weeks, but lots of meaning, and it's in front of your face, of my face all the time. And so, always wanting to be real with my kids and also have patience and enough energy to, it's easy for me to be passionate about work. And obviously it's easy to be passionate about kids, but I feel like it takes a lot more concerted and choreographed energy to be patient with my kids. Whereas with my work, my brain just knows where it wants to go and what to do. And I've been doing my job a lot longer than I've been a mom. So at this point, it's exciting, and I, I'm setting limits in every area of my life all the time. But I hope that answered the question, but it wasn't direct.
I love it. You know what? And a lot of
That's
things
so good.
aren't direct. They're not direct. And so it's about exactly getting comfortably uncomfortable to kind of, you're not going to have that direct line. But, as we were hearing you talk, like what I heard you saying is your why is to role model for your kids, a strong woman and being able to be a working mom and still be there for them. And then also knowing that like every aspect of your life isn't going to go perfectly. So you got to, especially that leak, and adapting. I mean, hello, adapt psychological services. You got to adapt in work, adapt at home. But before we get into like deeper shame, I like to define things, and I love Brene Brown. And so we're going off of her definition, but I just want to read it. She defines shame as the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love and belonging. Something we've experienced, done, or failed to do makes us unworthy of connection. So I like to just go from your professional opinion and also your personal experience. What do you think of that definition of shame, and how does that apply to your working life and your personal experience with it?
Yeah. First of all, and I'm sorry to do this, would you read that first part one more time? I just want to make sure I have it cemented into my head. I'm all about Brene, but I want to make sure I have it cemented.
Of course. I think our listeners would like it too.
Yes.
Brene Brown defines shame as the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love and belonging.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I think that it's a label, first of all. When I think of shame, I think it's a hat that you put on and it's on. And no matter what hats you put on over it or other things that you try to wear around it, if you are in shame, you can't take it off. You can't cover it up, in other words. You can take it off, of course, but you can't cover it up. It is something that you have told yourself you are, or others have told yourself that you've internalized. I 100% wholeheartedly agree with that, with her definition of it. And it's a beast.
So how does that apply, when you're working with individuals with autism and just knowing that that's kind of your niche? How does shame play into this when you're working with them?
Yeah. So just to clarify a little bit about my work, I have clients of the way that the language that we use, and you wouldn't necessarily know this unless you're in my field, is neurodiverse clients of kind of all over the spectrum of neurodiversity. So what we would call people who are neurotypical, so who are not autistic or not on the autism spectrum, and then of course people who are. And so shame comes up equally with all of them. So with all of my clients, something has gone on that makes them feel that they are uniquely flawed or terrible or unforgivable, or just plain bad. And it feels like there is no separation, right? So I like the way that Brene talks about the differences between, for example, like shame and guilt, because guilt has everything to do with your observation of your behavior, and shame has everything to do with your observation of who you are or your perception of who you inherently are. So if I forgot about a friend's birthday and I tell myself, damn it, I really wish I hadn't done that thing. I wish I hadn't forgotten, and now I'm realizing I had. You're directing your emotions about yourself to your behavior, to what you did versus who you are, right? Rather than, oh my God, I forgot my friend's birthday, I'm a bad person, or I'm a bad friend, right? So the difference there, you can't do, if you're calling yourself a bad friend, there's nothing you can do about that, right? That's just who you are, and you have to swallow it and live with it every day, and it's gonna tear you apart. Versus perhaps if you've done something that is regrettable, perhaps you can do something to make a reparation or to improve your relationship, whether it would be an apology, whether it would take your friend out for a belated birthday celebration, whether it would be to like, you know, get a calendar and put like 8 gold stars around their birthday next year, whatever the kind of like reparative activity or behavioral measure could be. You won't feel that guilt forever. There are things that you can do. But with shame, if you're telling yourself that you are a certain way because of something you've done, psychologically, you're telling yourself there's nothing you can do about that. That's just who you are. And so you have to feel this shame in response to it.
It just brings such like an easy to understand real life example.
Oh my gosh.
To clear that out. I mean, they're words that are so heavy and so interchangeable, you know, in regular language, but you've completely broken them down differently, and how you can move past or get through, you know, with simple.
And I think it ties into your should episode too, right? Doesn't it?
Yes. And well, I was gonna say what I love that you caught me on. You kind of, I mean, you made me a little uncomfortable. Like, oh crap, did I say something wrong? But I love that you right off the bat were like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Yes, I work with people with autism, but shame is non-discriminatory, is what I heard you say. Shame happens whether you're male, you're female, you have a diagnosis, you don't have a diagnosis. Like, shame happens no matter what, is what I was like, yes. Like I was like, okay, I got you. I hear you.
Yep.
Okay. But that's what I got from what you just said of like, you can't really, I mean, you can't really hide from shame is what I'm hearing you say, is like, there's a differentiation of going off of Brene Brown's definition of that guilt of like knowing that it's a behavior that, oh, slap on the hand or punish or need to take the steps to rebuild. But shame is deeper than that. Shame is like, it hits you at the core is what it sounds like. It's that like sense of, okay, well, now I'm like what she said, unworthy, right? And so like, I don't know, I keep thinking in my head of like, you want to talk about your personal journey of shame, and like, I want to dig deep. I want to get there and be like, okay, since it's non-discriminatory and you work with people with shame across the spectrum, and we can't talk about your, you know, patients because HIPAA, you know, don't do that. But I'm going to pick on you and be like, okay, tell us about your shame and what you experienced.
Yeah. So, this is a total lesson in, you can read every book on shame and you can't escape it. You know, like I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say like, oh, you're a psychologist, so like you must be able to like help your kids through any emotion that they, you know, difficult emotion that they have, or like you must be so patient with, you know, in your personal life, or like so compassionate all the time. You know, which of course like shame comes up when it's like I can.
But for the record, you are a wonderfully compassionate person.
Thank you.
No side note. But.
I appreciate
Alex is our builder, man. I love her so much. She like just makes everyone feel better instantly. Like seriously, she's my little, I mean, she's my sunshine. I love her.
Thank you, ladies.
And I'm over here like, no, tell me about your shame. Tell me about this. Like, let's go.
That's why we're good compliments.
Let's do it. So, you know, I mean, there's been shame throughout each pregnancy, new mom phase of a toddler, mom of 2 kids. You know, if we want to talk about the shame that's tied to me being a parent, me with my body. I think the most accessible to me right now is thinking about shame with my body, because it's what I'm in now.
Yeah.
I think I've been in therapy with my personal therapist for a good 7 years. She actually recently went on maternity leave. And so it's funny, we've had this very like parallel journey in our lives together where, this is her second kid now. So like we've been within like a year proximity of like major life events in many ways. But it's been really cool too. So, and I will say, it's just, as a woman, it's really interesting. Like, pregnancy is something that if you have another diagnosis or like condition of another kind, you don't necessarily have to disclose that. When you're pregnant, obviously in your job, your clients know, right? So like, even when you're a remote therapist, like, you're going to have to disclose that you're pregnant at some point, not just because you're going to go on maternity leave, but because you're wearing it on the outside. So I find that fascinating and challenging all in itself. But for me personally, I had Lou at the end of 2017, my first kiddo. And, I did nothing pretty much differently after that first chunk of like getting your body back to doing things like running. The relaxin isn't so strongly coursing through your hips, right? And your lower core. And obviously I'm speaking really from knowing this from YouTube. But you can kind of get back to teaching your body how to run again, or I'm all big high impact cardio. So like running, and boxing and dancing and cycling, both outside and in group classes. Those are my things.
Sandy has totally kicked our asses together
up
in
and
class.
down the indoor field.
Yeah. Her classes were our favorites.
Yes, they 100% were.
You guys,
favorite, because I'd be warming up going, what am I doing?
We're like, don't pee. You can do it. We can do it. We can be strong.
I mean, we're going to talk about peeing ourselves, but that's also talking about like shame in that. So like, I'd love to talk a little bit more of just like, what exactly about your body journey were you feeling like shame, like that you could differentiate and be like, I can't talk, differentiate and say, oh no, like, because you're a psychologist, you have a lot of awareness, and being able, I mean, you talked eloquently and beautifully just about shame versus guilt. How did you know it was shame and not guilt? And like, what exactly about your body changing and journey of being pregnant and then getting back into exercise? And you said you're high impact girl. I'm like, yeah, you're going to pee your pants right away when you start getting back into high impact. So I'd love to like hear more about that.
And how you asked for help, how you decided to ask for help too.
Oh, well, for sure. Yes, please.
So I think it developed because of where I came from. I ran marathons. I biked to and from work every day and from school. And, starting in college, I biked everywhere and I ran everywhere. I, read that book. I don't know if you remember the Born to Run book with the barefoot running, and I had the barefoot shoes, and I ran my first 2 or 3 marathons in the barefoot shoes. And that was like, I was like that weirdo who you'd see, running around the outside, like basically pumping my fists in the air with joy and excitement. And it was like, it was who I was. Right. And so it was that label, right? Once again, you can put positive labels on yourself too, which can be limiting, of course, even if they're positive in the moment, even if they're reinforcing all healthy and good and positive things in a moment. Reminding yourself that doesn't have to be who you are forever is going to diminish the shame that you're going to experience. Because for me, I was that person. I was that intense athletic person. And I couldn't be that person after having my second kiddo. I couldn't get back into running and cardio and high impact athleticism as quickly as I could with my first kiddo. And obviously some of that is just like your body being like, cool, we have kids now. And this is your hips being like, nope, we're not going to close back up. And I think also the fact, and I have to imagine this isn't all that uncommon, which is one of the things I tell myself to reduce shame, by the way. That women realize for the first time after having a kid that they didn't know how to tense their pelvic floor muscles and use their inner core. You know, like my legs, my butt, and my hip flexors can go for days, but if it's dependent on my lower core to really be the last piece of the puzzle to run without peeing myself, or dance without peeing myself, or jump up and down with my kids without peeing myself, then I've got work to do. And suddenly I'm not the person I thought I was, and enter shame, right? If that's the story I'm telling myself, if that's the internal monologue, oh, I guess I'm not this high intense person. I can't even jump with my kids, let alone run 6 miles. Who do I think I am?
So the shame was linked to your identity, that your identity, you identified yourself as a certain person, that high intensity athletic person. And now because you weren't that person, you didn't feel like you should be loved, or you didn't love yourself, or where is that link in the shame of?
I didn't feel like myself anymore. It
okay.
wasn't even like what I deserved. For example, I used to be part of like a running group, and they would post, you know, they post their, now that they couldn't run in a group during the pandemic, their kind of remedy was just to post on Instagram. And as we talk about Instagram is such a vehicle for shame in so many ways.
We should just make a separate episode with that.
Yeah.
But I would love to hear all the things.
So I had been following this running group, and this running group is totally not about, let's see, like only post if you run X amount of miles at X amount of pace. Like they are incredibly wonderful and accepting. But every time I would cruise through my stories and a story would pop up about just a person posting a run. I didn't even necessarily see how far they went or whatever. It was like just shame. I was taking like a shame shower. Just kind of
shame shower. Oh my
God. That's,
you know,
you gotta remember that one.
This terrible warm feeling of like, oh,
such a good analogy.
Yeah.
And so it was me telling myself, and this is, you know, I don't know that I've talked through it like this, Sandy, to say like, what was it? It's not about what I don't deserve or if I'm not loved. It's about, it's first and foremost, what comes to mind is I'm not myself anymore. I'm not, if that's who I am, that athletic endurance, high intensity person, and I can't do the thing that makes me that thing, then I must not be me. And so like, who am I? And enter existential crisis and the rug getting pulled out from under you and free falling emotionally.
So it sounds like shame and identity are linked, because I mean, I felt that when I stopped doing gymnastics. My whole life I was a gymnast, and what am I now that I'm not? And like how, I mean, I will say for mine was a connection of like, people loved me because I was the gymnast, in the sense of like, at least that was my view. That was my perspective of like, I could flip, I could dance, I could do all this stuff. And then when it was like, wait, nobody's asking me to do a back handspring. Do you not love me anymore? You know, like that is fascinating that you made that link of like, if you only square yourself off to a certain identity, and that's who you are, and you're in this little box, as soon as you get pulled out, you probably have a higher risk of shame, is what I'm hearing you say, or those shame showers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're connecting that next piece too, right? I think I got to a point, I think initially with some of this high impact stuff and like really intense and kind of wacky, like I did like my first marathon was like a trail marathon, and that's very much like a badge that I wear in terms of like calling myself an athletic badass, right? So and that piece that you're connecting into, it's not about like, oh, I can't do a back handspring anymore, who am I? There's a step further that's like, not only maybe can I not do it as well as I used to or at all, but what did I get socially or relationally or externally from that? What did I feel when I could tell somebody that and they were impressed or admirous or jealous or whatever they felt that made me feel whatever I felt, whether it's pride or excitement or like confidence, and so that's that next step. It's that identity piece. And then it's, what did that identity, what did that get me in the world? And I don't mean to say that in a negative way, because I think we all grow into, when you think of like a 12-year-old, it's so important that they're like desperately clinging to like, who am I? That's the developmentally appropriate primary question that we're asking ourselves when we enter adolescence, right? Who am I? I'm in this group of friends. Who are they? Who are we? Who am I? Where do I stand? And we answer that question through patterns that we develop and reactions that we get from others. And then hopefully we mature into a more, self-grounded place where we're identifying from a place of, this is not what people tell me I am, but what I prefer and what I value. And so I think that makes it all the more challenging, is, at least in my experience of my own personal shame, was I think I had moved through the like, okay, I felt like I impressed people with my athletic accomplishments, but now this is what I love doing. This is what I truly value about what the hard work I've done for my body and what my body can do for me. I have built up my miles bit by bit. I have built up my endurance bit by bit. And now I can go on this run where I feel amazing. And I get to go, if I'm on vacation, I can go explore a new place by running. And it's this incredible euphoric high. I don't need to post a picture on Instagram. I don't need to tell anybody about it. I just love it. And I'm getting like oh my God, the just emotional chills right now, because thinking about how I can't do that. I'm holding back tears, honestly. Like,
I love it.
I can't go somewhere right now and run 6 miles and feel that high, because my body can't do that right now. And it's devastating.
And one thing that just kept occurring to me when you're talking about losing your identity, I think when you become a mother too, you immediately get this new identity as a mother. And there's a huge element of shame. And what if I don't want that to be my main identity, right? That's what people now label you as. And that is the first and foremost, where you have all these other loves, you have these passions, you have these other things that used to be your identity. And, maybe you don't want that to be your primary one. And I just think, kind of flipping it on its head too is like
Right. Yeah.
Well, I think it's silly because we want to put things in one box, and it's like when people are like, "What do you do?" And I tease because like in the fitness industry, we're all slashes, right? Like it's like, "What's your slash?" Because it's like, I'm a coach. I mean, many people are like, "I'm a coach. I'm an actor. I'm a model. I'm a teacher. I'm a this. Like I'm a mom." So like it's fascinating just in society that we get. Like we want to, like you said, label. Like we don't understand that somebody could be fluid. Like if you're a mom, yes, you're a mom. You're also an athlete. You're also a psychologist. You're also, a runner, a this. Yet we're gonna like, oh, but no, but you're a mom. Like that's what I find. Like you said, like Alex, like it's like your primary identity, and like shifting this whole. Because at least for me, when I heard you speaking about like validation, it was this thing of like, oh my gosh, yes, like what I'm hearing you say is if I want to help myself not feel shame, I need to continue down that spectrum and path to continue to have internal validation, not seek external validation.
Yeah. There's a concept there's a type of therapy called acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT. And there's a concept in it called, there's a kind of like conflict. It's self as content versus self as context. And so the idea is to strive what we all inherently, what our brains naturally do, is that putting ourselves in boxes, which is self as content, right? I'm an X. I do this. I'm a XYZ. Self as context is that fluid ability to be the slash. You don't have to be on either side of the slash. You can just be the slash, right? So you can be whatever the context, whatever your values are to be in that context, right? I mean, obviously you can't be a rocket scientist if you've never studied rocket science, But like, if you have inherent parts of you that want to be different things that are in opposition, it's much more valuable and shame reducing to think what the context, what your value is in that context, what brings you a sense of purpose in the context. So there are times at home when I'm itching to go for a run, my husband and I give each other the signal, like, you got him, I gotta go. And we do this with each other on a daily, maybe multiple times a day basis, you know, where it's like, okay, now I need to be a runner. Right. So, you know, I'm just going to kind of like back myself, make my way out of our condo, and then I close the door. Yeah. And then I close the door, and now I'm a runner. And, you know, that, like, I don't know if you all experience that feeling where you're like, I know I'm going to open the door and I'm going to have to be another person right now. Right. Like, I get to be my own person right now, and I'm back from my run or my whatever, doing my own thing. And I'm going to open the door and be another person. And sometimes I just have to like, okay, let go of that part of that context and enter into a new context where I can be fluidly multiple things, right? Maybe I'm also thinking about work while I'm being a mom, right? But like, I can allow the context to dictate what I value being, rather than taking one hat off and putting another on. I can be a few different. I don't know if
no, that was great. I mean, in that, I mean, we clearly decided, you pretty much held me accountable of like, shame doesn't discriminate. We all experience it. And so admitting that to ourselves is step one.
Yeah.
I think then now what I would love to hear, you know, because we could talk to you about this
seriously
for hours. And so at some point we got to be like, all right, Maddie, Dr. Maddie, if like you could pinpoint 3, and you kind of already said one, of like shame reducing by accepting the fluidity of our slashes and knowing that we can move from box to box, and accepting and loving ourselves and belonging into all of those is worthy. What other 2 shame reducing like hacks, tips, things to focus on would you give us and our listeners about dealing with shame? Because we can't escape it, is what I heard from you. And you're the doctor of like, we're going to have shame in all seasons of life and all different transitions. So what do I do?
Yeah. So I 100% agree with Brene Brown's step 1, which is name it, and not just in your head. Find a way to speak it. Whether you text a friend and say, sitting in the shame shower, right? Or whatever it is, like sitting on the floor of the shame shower, sitting on the floor, letting the water fall over my hair and like can't stand up, right? Or if you're just out loud, like sometimes I'll like kind of tap them on my forehead, like shame, 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 pain, 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 pain. That's what a trick that Brene Brown would have had recommended, and it's not to me personally.
But I mean, if just
we were talking the other day, but it's so helpful, because the way that the brain and the way that emotions like shame and anxiety, when I talk to kids about this, or teenagers about this, I talk about it in terms of they're not you, they're a monster in your brain, and they want you to not talk about it, because then they're stronger. If you are giving voice to them and like opening the door and going, aha, there you are, it's shame, that's what's going on, that's what I'm feeling, their power is cut at the waist, because now you know what you're dealing with, right? Versus if all you can think to do is call yourself an X type of person, shame is going to persist and grow and get stronger. And so the first goal is just to identify it and to say, oh, this is shame, because then it's something that you've identified, and it's not who you are, it's what you're dealing with. And it makes for most people a much more manageable process. So then what I like to do is shift that to guilt, because guilt is a much more manageable emotion. And like I said, you can do something with guilt to help yourself out, to help the situation out. So trying to focus on your behavior. What did I do to get to this place where I'm calling myself an X type of person? Did I forget a friend's birthday? Did I do something? Did I cheat? Did I do something that I, in my mind, I feel is unforgivable? But let's look at the action, whatever it is. Maybe it's something I caused, maybe it's something I didn't. and I feel like it happened to me or around me, or about me, but let's look at the behaviors. And so then it's much more manageable. We're breaking it down into parts.
So name it, shift it. What would you say the last thing is?
So hold on, I've lost my train of thought.
You said name the shame.
Right.
So like you name the shame.
Yep.
And then what I heard you say is shift it. And you said to shift it to guilt because that gives you a more manageable or digestible process to,
so
you know,
the third part
restore.
Right. So the third part then is to, and this might sound cheesy, but kind of rewrite the story, right?
All about cheesy. I love that.
Rewrite your narrative, rewrite your story, where you're saying to yourself, okay, once upon a time, there was a lady named Maddie who had a really busy day, and that doesn't excuse it, but she ended up forgetting her friend's birthday. And she realized it 2 days later. She snapped to, and she leveled with her friend, and she owned it, and they talked it out, and she did what was within her control to try to connect with her friend, to try to show her friend that she cared about her. And I will say there's a really unfun part of this sometimes, which is grief, which when I talk about my own body and my own journey, there's some grief about the 25-year-old, 26-year-old, 27-year-old who could run marathons, right? I might never be able to do that again, or if I do, I'm going to be dragging my body across the finish line, and it might not feel good. So I
disagree, Maddie. You'll get there.
Thank you.
She's talking about today. She's got to live up the today, the grief of today.
Today.
But again, Alex or Sunshine. Do you see Alex or Sunshine over here?
The thing
like, I freaking love her. She's like,
this woman, Maddie, is the most aware. She builds the blocks. I mean, what I just keep hearing over and over again is you are aware, and then you find the blocks to build the next story. I mean, that's exactly what you did with your physical journey. When we were working together, we built the blocks together, and you're still sending these messages like, I'm finding this new awareness. I'm finding this new core strength. I'm doing this movement differently. I feel stronger. So it helps boost and build.
You helped me with some grief in the moment, and I didn't necessarily go into it with you, but like, there were points when I was working with you where you made it feel okay for me to say, like, oh my God, why can't I find my core in my brain? Like, bringing it back to your focuses and your specialty. It's been 9 months since I've had my second kiddo, and it's taken me 8 months to find where my lower core is, and it, like, in my brain, it's that mind body connection of like, I can't think about flexing any muscle. I can't flex any muscle in my body unless like something's coming at me and I have to like brace myself without thinking about it. And
that's your nervous system saying, I got you.
Yeah, right. There's that. But like, if I'm in a boxing class and I'm trying to twist while bracing my core and my obliques, I wanted to like throw my gloves off, look down at my core and go like, what? Why would you engage? Where are you? I wanted to just like scream. It was infuriating, and like so much shame lived there because I never thought that I would have to think about
ask for support. Because I mean, what I heard you say, like, I loved your rewriting thing, but like for our listeners and what our challenge is for this episode, and I'm so excited for it, is okay, the hashtag is going to be #CUShame. And listeners, your challenge is to tag us and #CUShame. And I want you to name your shame, shift your shame. And this is the one. How are you going to get support to rewrite your story? Because it sounded right there that Maddie, your support was reaching out to Alex and saying, Alex, I'm having a shame shower because I'm looking down and saying, you're shooting on yourself of like, I should be able to activate my core. I should be able to do X, Y, and Z. And you sought out support, that third step of shame reducing, which was to get support from Alex, and you guys built the blocks together. So like, that's our challenge this week is tag us, name it, shift it, and how are you going to get support? And maybe your first step in supporting is to name it and shift it out publicly and tagging us and knowing that you're not alone. And girl, I was peeing my pants. We'll talk about this next episode. My daughter was, let's see, she would have been like 18 months. Yeah, I think she was 18 months. And I'll save that story for our next episode. But let's just say I told everybody in the room that I was still peeing myself.
It takes time. I found Sandy at 9 months post with the twins. I mean, it takes time to get there.
Yeah. I mean, and you're such an inspiration too with your, you know, of course there's all kinds of shoulds that come up for me. Like, Alex can do it. Like I'm working right now in the moment, shifting from should be able to do it, but I can keep working at it. Yes.
That's right. Love it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I could have made that. I mean, I can't tell you how many helpful, just small, your words are in my head probably every time I go to
always there.
A class. I know you're there. But it's so incredibly helpful because there's now not a position, you know, whether you're like doing a side plank or like high knees or whatever it is. I now know the muscles I need to disengage and the muscles I need to engage. And I can talk myself through that because of my work with you. And, you know, obviously fixing the problem solves shame. But if you're having a hard time fixing the problem and shame is there, I think these steps of naming it and converting it into a more manageable emotional experience and sharing it with trusted
support
people,
it. Yeah.
Either you love or are professionals to support you.
Well, we want to support you. And so if our listeners are noticing that they need support and they just love Dr. Maddie as much as we do, then how can we find you?
I have a website. So it's www.adaptpsych.com. And all of my contact information is there. And, you know, I personally would enjoy, you know, working in therapy and in, so the other service is called assessment or diagnostic testing. And I work throughout the lifespan for, you know, tiny kiddos through adults. But I also, a big value of mine is to be connected to resources in the Chicagoland community for, you know, if I can't help a person or don't have the availability or the specialty, it's so important to me that I'm not just like, hey, come work with me, but I find the person who's a right fit, you know, because that's always going to be important no matter what service you're seeking.
I found this quote on your website that I just am dying to share because I think it speaks so well to everything that we talked about today. We cannot direct the wind, but we can direct the sails. Dolly Parton. So good.
So good.
Yeah.
This was amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Maddie.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you both.
Thank you for showing up today. Getting awkward is always more fun with friends. Give us a review, tag us, and share us so we can continue to grow together.
Use hashtag CUPod, letter C, letter U, or tag us. You can find Sandy on Instagram at sweatandshineon and Alex at aj.afterbabyfit on Instagram and afterbabyfit on Facebook and YouTube. We'll see you next time.